Remove the cover with the 4 screws, one in each corner. I removed one earlier. So the first thing we need to do is to set the dip switches on our Tristar. And to do that we need to refer to the user manual. Okay, so the dip switches are labelled number 1 to 8. Now the Tristar that we have here has lots of different jobs that it can do, but the one job that we need it to do is something called diversion mode. So firstly we need to set the Tristar into diversion mode, and the way we do that is by setting switch number 1 to the on position, which is up. So we get the screwdriver here and we just push that switch number 1 to the up position. Now switches number 2 and 3 tell the Tristar what voltage your system is running at. In our case here today on this temporary installation we are doing a 12 volt system, so in that case I'm looking at the manual, and for 12 volts it tells me that switch 2 is off and switch 3 is on. So I'll set switch 2 as off and switch 3 is on. Now switches 4, 5 and 6 all determine what voltage the regulator will begin to dump power into the dump load. Now we're using some pretty rudimentary lead acid batteries, so I'm going to set these to regulate at 14.6 volts. That's a fairly average kind of setting. What's important is the regulation point of the Tristar controller needs to be slightly above any other regulators you have in the system. So if you have a solar PV feeding the same set of batteries and that regulates at 14.4 volts, we need to make sure that our Tristar is set to regulate at 14.4 volts or slightly higher. So in this case 14.6 will be great. So I'm looking at the table in the user manual, and for 14.6 volts I need to set switch 4 on. I need to set switch 5 off, which it is, and I need to set switch 6 off, which it is. So now we've told the Tristar what voltage we'd like it to start dumping power. Now it's worth saying that in the Tristar user manual and also the Leading Edge user manual, the dip switch settings for switches 4, 5 and 6 tell you the settings for 12 volts. If you're using a 24 volt system, you just simply need to double those values. So if we were to set it according to the manual at 14 volts, that in fact would be 28 volts on a 24 volt system. And if you're using a 48 volt system, you need to simply quadruple those numbers. Okay, so switches 4, 5 and 6 are now done, which leaves switch number 7. Now always, for diversion mode, switch number 7 needs to be in the on position. Pop that up. And finally we just need to look at switch number 8. Now switch number 8 is to do with battery equalization. This is a special part of the charging procedure that actually every now and again allows the batteries to be overcharged slightly, and that helps to stir up the electrolyte in the batteries and mix up the battery acid basically. Gel batteries should not be equalization charged, so if you're using a gel battery you need to switch that off. And in general, we generally recommend that you switch the automatic equalization charge off. You can still do a manual equalization charge by pressing the button on the Tristar, and it's much better to have manual control over that. So we're going to switch it to the off position. So switch number 8 is going to go in the off position, which it is already. And that now is the configuration of the Tristar complete.